when Rome comes in to mediate, they do a good job. They take over the country. And that's basically what happened. It's much more complex than that, but basically. So what happened was, it was never good shidduch, never good match, us in Rome. I mean, everything they thought was beautiful and desirous, we basically thought it was pretty disgusting. Example. General Roman thought of the day, nothing wrong with slavery, conquest, debauchery, go to the Colosseum and watch gladiator combat, public torture. The greatest contest they ever had in the Colosseum, if you've ever been there, in 107 Trajan, he had 10,000 people fighting at one time, which meant what? 50,000 men, women, and children came in for free. They got free meat, cushion, and wine to watch minimally 5,000 people die for fun. That was what was going on back in those days. Oh, by the way, circumcision. Well, they looked at circumcision. Uncivilized self-mutilation. They couldn't understand it. That had to go. But what happened was, it got a little bit difficult, and the answer was, we revolted. When we talk about the wars against the Romans, you have to use plural. It was wars, or you could say 3 rounds. Round number 1, you had Vespasian, somehow called like that. He was in charge of the one. Actually, he became Caesar, he had to go home. His son Titus took over. That ended up not so well for us. It ended up in the destruction of Jerusalem and destruction of the temple. Round number 1. Round number 2 happened in different parts of the Roman Empire. Not much happened here because we were exhausted because of round number 1. And this happened in different parts of the Roman Empire, in Asia Minor, in Cyprus, in Egypt. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of Jews slaughtered. And round number 3, which gets us to what we're about to see today, was called the Bar Kochba Revolt. And that revolt, unfortunately, was probably the most bloodiest and long-lasting consequences than the other 2, because we were still in exile from that. It took 1,800 years finally to get back here in 1948 when we finally got our feet back on the ground. They literally ground us, pulverized us into dust. Now, again, the spark that started the Bar Kochba Revolt, it could be because the Romans decided to build a Roman city on the ruins of Jerusalem. Certainly when they put a pagan temple up on the Temple Mount, a temple to Jupiter, that didn't go well. It was the ultimate insult. Not to mention that they outlawed Shabbos, public prayer, public Torah study, bris milah. It was too much. It was bound to blow up, and it did. What happened was, when you have a revolution, you always need strong, focused leadership. And in stepped this fellow who is famous today, but back then he was a bit obscure. A fellow, later we called him Bar Kochba, son of the rising star, messianic ideas. He was unbelievably strong physically and spiritually. In fact, one of his biggest backers, Rabbi Akiva, he saw messianic potential in this guy. He was behind him 100%. And in the beginning, they really were successful. I mean, example, Roman 22nd Legion, an unbelievable fighting machine. We ambushed them and actually completely decimated them. They never rebuilt it because there was nothing to rebuild. They're completely finished. What happened was, because of the pressure of Bar Kochba, you had an army of about 100,000 people behind him. Tremendous power. Finally, the Romans had to back up. They backed out of Jerusalem. They went up to Caesarea. Bar Kochba came to Jerusalem. He declared the new Commonwealth. He started clearing off the Temple Mount to build a new temple. Started minting coins. How long did this new epic last? About 30 months. The Romans, this just couldn't be. So they started importing more troops, more legions. The entire Roman army all over the world was 24 legions. In the end, they brought in 12 legions, half of their entire army, to deal with us Jews. It was the most long and costly campaign they ever had. Now what happened was, finally they pushed and pushed, and just the overwhelming strength of the Romans. They were back in Jerusalem. Bar Kochba and his troops had to back up to Betar, which is just south of Jerusalem, The Betar of today is not on the original Betar. There's an Arab village town over the real Betar, so we never had a chance to dig it up yet. But the Romans went. There was actually a Jewish informer that informed the Romans of the fortifications there. And to make a long story short, on the 9th of Av, Betar fell. By our sources and by Roman sources, it's estimated about 580,000 Jews died during that campaign. It said the blood was running like river. And that was it, and the lights went out of any sort of hopes for autonomy for about 1,800 years until finally we came back in 1948. Now, just one more thing I will know, what's really interesting is, Bar Kochba, he wasn't so successful, but Rabbi Akiva was a bit erratic. He became a little paranoid. He became a bit of a despot, and Rabbi Akiva publicly announced that this guy was no longer messianic material. And what happened was, that was the end, like I said before, for over 1,800 years. Now, what do I mean that Bar Kochba couldn't defeat the Romans, but Rabbi Akiva did? Think about this man. Rabbi Akiva, he just witnessed let's put it this way, the downfall of Betar, the massacre of 580,000 Jews, 24,000 of the students died in a very short period. All the arguments and infighting with the Jews, the cruelty of the Romans, he never, ever, ever, ever lost his belief and his love for his Creator and the Jewish people and Eretz Israel. And that basically wound its ways into the heart of the Jewish nation. And we carried that strength for over 1,800 years. And that was one of the things that kept us going during a long, long, dark exile. We are here. Rome is in the garbage can of history. And a lot of that we owe to the inspiration we got from Rabbi Akiva, aside from everything else. Okay, we're going to go in the caves now. Just realize...
Are you going to
yeah,
the caves?
just mention, as far as the caves goes, this area here, the surface level is actually very, very hard. But you punch through and very quickly you're in a layer of chalk. Very easy to dig, even with iron tools. This whole area here, there's literally dozens, hundreds of different types of caves. Some they used just for building material, but others we used for the revolt. We're hiding in caves like this. Now, a lot of them you'll see in the side of the caves, when you go through these caves, there's little holes all over the walls. They're called columbariums. It comes from a Latin word from pigeon, columbare, I think. I forgot how to pronounce it. But originally, a lot of these places were built for little pigeon houses. Why do you need pigeon houses? Number one, for food. Number one, for sacrifice. Number two, pigeon guano, dung, is one of the best natural fertilizers. There can be potassium, nitrogen, phosphorus, unbelievable. There's an island in the Indian Ocean, it's Christmas Island, and there's a whole city built on top of it because the whole place is full of birds, and they came there to mine the guano from the birds to use as phosphorus and send it all over the world. We don't do it so much anymore, but there's still a huge community over there. Again, the upper level is very tough, but as soon as you punch through into soft chalk and you can dig very quickly out, there's many, many these caves all over this area, peppered all over. Down and a little further down the road on the right side, there's caves unfortunately barred off. You can't go anymore, but it's so complex and so many rooms, it's just unbelievable. And there's another place further down the road in Lachish, there's actually almost like a little underground city there. They had an underlying olive press, and they had storage rooms, and they had sleeping rooms, and this rooms and that rooms, all hidden to try to get a little bit of sheket when we're trying to deal with this Roman situation. So I guess we'll go in now.